Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, live from the beautiful Hudson Valley. I'm located in ATL, shouty. All right, Brock, let's get right to it, man. So much stuff happening in DC. You got Hegseth with another freaking signal scandal. So a possible firing there, although this guy should have resigned a long time ago. But I want to talk more about the lingering effects of these protests over the weekend because Trump was clearly bothered by them. You could tell by his rambling rants on social media, just how bothered he was, although he did not mention the protests by name.
Looking more of the footage, particularly the stuff coming out of New York, apparently it did get pretty aggressive and personal towards Trump, which I'm happy to see because I think that's the sort of thing you have to do to get under his skin. So there was a group that went, sort of off the track of the East Side March and went by his hotel, the Trump Hotel around Columbus Circle, and was doing like a fuck Donald Trump chant and stuff like that. That's the aggressiveness that I wanted to see because we know that's what bothers him more than just a docile little walk in the park, right? Like when people are mocking him and directly challenging him, he doesn't handle it well. So
No,
it's glad to see that. We need more of that.
yeah. And hey, let's go back to the first Trump circus. Remember when London flew the baby Trump balloon with the diaper on it? I mean, he
Yeah.
was furious. So that's the kind of stuff that has to be done to him because we have to humiliate him. We have to get him to, engage in more unforced errors. I mean, he's going to do it anyway. But I feel like, I mean, we haven't even hit 100 days yet. And, when you look at the chaos, I mean, the chaos that comes with this guy and his like who lives like that at 70 years old? 78 years old. This guy is like, I mean, so wound up and so angry. It's just unimaginable. You know how bad it is when his kids don't even want to be around for the grift. We haven't seen Ivanka. We haven't seen Jared. We hardly see Eric and what's the
Don
other one?
Jr. Don
Enriquez.
Jr.
Yeah, Don Jr. So, I mean, we've
Look,
got to,
he's
but we got to
he's
keep his
you know
mouth on.
he's crazy, right? He's an old guy. He's in mental decline, but he has mental issues, right? We've talked about it. I think he's a psychopath. He's definitely a malignant narcissist. So when you can chip away at his ego and really directly insult him or embarrass him, yes, he'll lash out. Everyone's his enemy, right? Immediately. He has a grudge everywhere. And just make him keep fighting all these battles because mentally he can't walk away from anything. So the more groups and people that stand up to him and the more that people that take the gloves off and take shots at him, the more it will just wear him down because he'll just be spinning around trying to fight the next battle and the next battle. There's no doubt negative ramifications will come out of it. He'll do shitty stuff that hurts people, but he's going to do that anyway. So we need to be on the offensive against him instead of that's why I didn't like hands off as the messaging. Because it's not
Right,
about that's defensive. It's not like, oh,
right,
hands off. It's like, no, how about hands on him? Let's flip
right.
it over. Let's land punches on him instead of always just trying to avoid his punches. And that's really where the protests have to go, in my opinion. And that's also why I'm so adamant and yearning for the participation of Black, Brown, and Young America
Right.
because we need a broader force, we need more numbers, but we also need, a higher intensity effort,
Right.
and I think the youth would bring that, certainly, right? A higher energy if we can get some young people out.
No doubt. I checked up on the State of the People tour, which is the African American contingent and the gathering that's going to happen this weekend, this Saturday here in Atlanta. And the objectives for the State of the People tour, remember, they're going to 10 different states,
I didn't
most of
realize
the
it
South.
started Saturday, so it's starting this week. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, the 26th. So the objectives are to unite Black communities around shared power and purpose, provide hope, relief, and tangible support to Black communities, offer action items and a path forward, create pathways for action, connection, and long-term engagement. So you see, they're kind of on the same page with me, where I was like, let's start, slow and then work our way into a long-term conversation. In the meantime, though, we have to have that shared power. We have to have our voices heard because I read a report today and I posted online about how few black men are advancing in academics and going to school and going to college. At Howard University, we have 19% of the population is black males. We have more other than black males.
That's an unbelievable statistic,
It's
right?
crazy,
But
right?
then we're going to peel back, quote, DEI, because got painted. We let the MAGA paint that as a negative word. And if we're not going to have economic support and other support, and the what universities are going to go back to just rolling in legacy, right? So it's
Right,
going to be Johnny Butler the fourth going because his great
right.
grandfather went, and like that's what's going to happen in academia again.
And what's happening, at the HBCUs is a lot of kids had their funding pulled, right? Because Trump came in and started 2025 and cutting all these programs that a lot of African American students were depending on for financial aid. Now it's not going to be there next year. A lot of these kids are not going to be able to return. Where are they going to get the money for tuition?
I know,
Howard
and hopefully
University
it's
is
like a
almost
this.
60K a
It's a,
year.
it's like a this is why you go vote because there is a difference between the parties and the leaders in terms of tangible things in your life. So I like that message because that you laid out for Saturday's event because it sounds like it starts almost with a like, hey, let's remind ourselves what a force we can be. Let's sort of like re-energize ourselves here in the room,
Right,
and then let's talk about near term action, right? Number three. And then right behind that, let's talk about the longer term goals, right? Because what I would imagine, like if I'm sitting on that organizational team, I'm going, okay, if we're getting back in this fight and we're going to help like win some shit here, right?
right.
Like after we
Absolutely.
win and we're now, and now we're going back to quote normalcy, you know, well, normalcy wasn't so great.
Right,
We need some gains out of this, right? We got to
right.
come out of this in a better place, not just trying to scratch and claw put our way back to like a shitty place, right?
Right, right, right. Because again, like we talked about last time, all the gains after the George Floyd incident have been wiped away because Trump was like, that backlash you talked about, right? Where people were just like, wait a minute, we don't need to be doing all this for them. Right? And so they wiped away all that money they had set aside for specifically black and brown initiatives to bring them into the fold, to support community projects, to support. I mean, Brad, we're talking about simple things here laptops in classrooms, right? Warm classrooms, breakfast in the morning, right? Reduced lunch, meals in the summertime because a lot of kids are only see what we don't realize when we get comfortable and even for me is how many kids in rural areas and in inner cities urban areas are only getting fed when they go to school, right? And how many kids have to come to these summer lunch programs and reduced lunch programs? And now all of a sudden you pull that stuff away so billionaires can pay less in tax. They already don't pay shit in taxes,
Yeah,
right? And
that
they want to pay less.
I don't know how they're going to push that through, but I got a couple white guy things for you today.
Okay.
So all right, the first one is I'm going back. I'm out on Blue Sky, right? And I'm saying, look, these protests have been great, but we need to. Who's the leader and what's the message that's going to inspire Black and Brown America to get out there with this force of white people that now is showing some consistency? Because I think that 50-51 actually put another date on the schedule. I think it's like May 1st. So I think it's maybe
Okay.
2 weeks out in like, I'm like, okay, well, what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks that maybe, and a white guy responds back to me, right? And it kind of like, well, they're invited to join at any time. And I
Nope.
didn't even engage. And my first
Right.
thought was like, they know they're fucking invited. That's not the issue. They know they're invited. They know they're welcome to be out there. That's not the point. The point is, how are you going to inspire them to get out there with you?
Right.
So, just from that, I know it's only one response, but like I think it's kind of emblematic of still where some white people are, where they really don't. They kind of just miss the point
Right,
that there's some shit that needs to be repaired here.
right.
It's not just we're on equal footing. Then I had a great conversation with a really good friend. Hadn't talked to him in a while. Didn't know exactly. Hadn't talked to him since the inauguration. So the
Mhm.
first Trump 100 days. So we had a
Uh-huh,
good. Ended up being a long conversation. I didn't know where he would stand on all of this. And
mhm.
turns out him and his college buddies, a little older than us, are all maybe not all white guys, probably white, but a little bit of a mixed group. I think the way he described it are fucking. They can't like maybe this is a little bit of gauge of where other white people are too. Like they're thinking about and talking about arming themselves and
Wow.
how many guns they're going to need because they're like all kind of believing that this is definitely going to get violent and they better arm up now because this shit could go down any day now. So there's
Right,
like a non-gun owner talking about how many guns he needs to be going and getting, and his
right,
very affluent crew of friends, who I'm sure almost none of them touched a firearm like me, and they're
right.
all talking. And just I think that's a sense of white people move to violence pretty quick, but white people also are wary of other white people who they know have a whole bunch of guns.
Right, right,
And there's
right,
that sense
right.
when shit goes down, and now that they're seeing these protests, it's kind of like, okay, shit's starting to percolate. White people are kind of thinking like, shit's starting to percolate. This
Right.
shit is not going to stay docile and calm week after week after week. Like, this shit is going to escalate. And the other
So
side's crazy and armed as motherfuckers.
that's interesting because, I was at that point in that conversation with the first go round, especially being in the South, especially being with the gun laws. I mean, you can bring a gun anywhere in Georgia, right? You bring one in church, right? I mean, now businesses have to put signs up that say no firearms allowed. And what does that really mean? Walmart can't set the law, right? But they can say, we don't want guns in our store. But how do you know? The guy's got a jacket on. He's packing heat, and you don't know until he pulls it out. So, that's when I bought my first gun was with the first Trump Circus. And I'm not a big fan of guns. I'm not even really very good at operating, the thing. So I got a shotgun and I got a pistol, and I'll be honest, they look brand new because they haven't been used. I've shot the pistol, once or twice at the range, and that's it, and it was just sad to me that we had come to a place where, you better be safe than sorry. And, I'm teaching my wife how to use these things. And like, we're trying to figure out how to load a shotgun, right? Like, I didn't grow up on a farm. I don't know
Yeah,
how to fire these freaking things.
they're harder than you think. I only shot guns once, but I haven't gone there to purchasing a gun. I've definitely thought about it because what happens in my little small town here in upstate New York, like, half of the people here no doubt own guns, right? Kind of farm country, rural, white, like they're Second Amendmenters, like
Right.
it's very prevalent. But it's just the psychology of white people hearing that today of just their sense that this is gonna go down, right? And even David Brooks, right, as we talked about, writing in the
Yes.
Times gonna have to be, not normal type of protesting and disruptive. Well, once it gets disruptive, the jump from disruptive to violent, not that far, right?
No,
Once
not
it
at
gets
all.
disruptive, somebody's calling in the authorities, and the
Yep.
authorities are armed, and
And we've seen
all
it.
these crazy white guys think they're militias, right? So they
Right.
think that they're like, they've been anointed as,
Yeah, well,
protectors
go
of
back.
their state, right?
I mean, it's not ancient history. I mean, Kent State, the Vietnam protests, and the '60s, the turbulent '60s. This it's gonna have to be that kind of rebellion because this guy's not gonna go without a fight, and he already thinks he's been wronged. Because every now and then, you catch him bringing up the convictions from New York. Whenever anybody hits him with, oh, he's just a felon anyway. Felons occupying the White House. He hates that. He
Yeah.
hates that. So we've got to stick to that, but we've got to put some pressure on because this guy needs to get gone along with all his minions. These people are not capable. We see it with Hexes, right? Let's get into Hexes for a minute. All right, this guy should have been gone after the first signal debacle, right? And now we find out that his wife, a former news producer at Fox, is privy to the information in the strikes of the Houthis. And so what's she doing with that information, right? Like, what's his brother doing with that information? Why do they need that? And this guy is in so far over his head. I mean, what have we had? Five key members of the brass resign just over the past 30 days. And I heard a report where an insider there at the Pentagon described it as 30 days of hell working for Hegseth. Now, he never came across as the sharpest, knife in the drawer. Why he's there, I have no idea. And why, Trump won't pull the cord. Remember the first go round, he was firing people left and
Yeah.
right. What's taking so long with this guy?
He gets the job because Trump likes guys who are on TV,
Right.
right? So he's a TV guy, so gets the job for that. You're right, like Sessions, like he fired different guys in that first go around. He's dug in more on this whole idea of never admitting any mistakes, so firing, kind of these worries that looks bad on him, at least at the beginning. And even the way they're doing it is once again Bush League. Supposedly they're looking for replacements, but the guy's still in the seat. But these rumors are floated out there. So now me and you know that he's going to get fired, right? Or
Right.
likely get fired. So now he's totally disempowered because everyone who works with him knows, oh shit, you're dead man walking up there. But they haven't found a replacement. So he's just going to sit in this in between stage for a period of time? Or is this Trump's way of trial ballooning whether the public's going to view this as good or bad and how it's going to affect his image and ego? So he won't even fire people until he has a sense of whether it's going to make him look good or bad. I
Right.
don't know which of those it is. They're all idiotic reasons, but Hegseth never should have had the job, should have resigned, and or no, none of these guys resigned, so should have been fired on the first signal gate. But now I'm already worried about how bad the replacement's going to be.
Right.
I saw Mike Flynn's name floated.
No way.
Just think of how bad a person Trump can find to fill the seat. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's an acting head of DOD, wouldn't even need a
Confirmation.
Senate
Right.
confirmation for at least a period of time, or
Right.
definitely. So who the fuck knows? He could pull anyone out.
Right.
He could
Which
pull
is
some Jan Sixer,
scary.
some Proud Boy out. Enrico Tario might be running DOD. But the problem is, what's to stop it?
Right. Right. There's nothing to stop it. And there's nothing to stop them because they don't care. We already know they don't care about institutional norms. We already know they don't care about veterans and they don't care about them as actual human beings. And we know they don't care about the diversity and who actually makes up our armed
A fighting
forces.
force, yeah.
Yeah, they don't even understand who that is. They think it's all, MAGA guys from, the sticks. And it couldn't be more off, right? It's 50% black and brown.
The
You
sad
know?
reality is the Hegseth quote crisis is probably better for Trump than people talking about the deportations, because that went so bad for them over the weekend, right? Van Hollen was like on 7 different TV shows. You had other GOP senators saying, well, we know it's a mistake, but we're not bringing them home anyway. Like, what kind of answer is that? Like, how is that like anyone's stance or answer? So this is also riling up white America, who's really pissed
Yeah,
about the due process element and the lack of law and order. Because
as you
white
should
people,
be.
we love our law and order. We love throwing people in jail. We love to think that there truly is a fair justice system
Right,
and that we're all a
right,
part of it, even though that's such a fraud. And I
right.
hope that after this, we'll actually really look at it, because we have a racist and a classist justice system.
Yes,
White America thinks that they have this rule of law that's
right,
like kind of equalizes everyone and that we're all the same under the law. So this
right.
riles up white people.
Yeah, and 60 Minutes, you're talking about some of the TV shows. 60 Minutes did a report that said 75% of the 238 people sent down there to the world's worst prison, CCOT, 75% of them did not have criminal records. That's 3 out of 4.
Yeah. And now El Salvador is like
238 people.
supposedly in negotiations with Venezuela to like sell the people back to Venezuela. So this has become like a human trafficking scam. Like
Right.
it's
It
so it
just
just
keeps
gets
getting
worse and
worse.
worse. So talking about Hegseth may actually be the lesser of two evils for Trump right now. And he certainly doesn't want anyone being interviewed to talk about the economy or the tariffs or what the
Oh,
stock market is doing, right? Because
right.
that's just tanking every day as the globe loses confidence in America and people start looking at what we've been talking about because I'm in the business is how much the tourism industry is getting crushed. Crushed. People just not showing up in horror stories of people getting basically shaken down, strips. There's a story about two women who were traveling the world and got strip searched in Hawaii.
I mean, yeah, it's a shame that we're not even close to the shining star on the hill anymore. We are a shell of the American ideal right now. And the fact that deals are being made. Oh, Trump. Oh, yeah, we're making deals. Our fault. You're not making any deal. The rest of the world is making deals, right? Like Australian beef is never been in more demand.
Yeah,
So
Brazilian soybeans. China's going to buy from Brazil
through the
instead of
roof.
U.S. Sorry, farmers.
Yeah.
Sorry, farm. You lost your U.S. aid deal. Oh, now you're losing your China business.
Right. Right. And how's he going to fix it? Right? You're going to bail him out?
They
That
throw
doesn't help him. Right. Just throw money.
taxpayer money. Yeah, because we got to keep those white farmers happy because we
Right.
screwed up. We screwed up again. We had to do it the first time. We have to do it again. But there's going to be so many holes in the boat, we won't be able to plug them, right? Because the automakers are firing people. Boeing's having planes sent back to them. So they're going to sit somewhere and they're going to have to write those off, you know. I mean, also right now
T-Mobile's canceled.
we're in the heart of earnings season for financial companies. So like this week, there's going to be a ton of CEOs who have to get in front of their shareholders and explain what's going on in their business. And it's just going to be a mess because they have no idea, but their stocks are down. Everyone's unhappy. And that's just going to be like a boiling over of rich white America,
Right.
all
Right.
bitching at each other about how fucked up Trump's policies are.
Right. And they thought it was going to be good for him.
Oh,
Again, it
yeah.
wasn't supposed to
Oh, yeah.
happen to
Oh, they
us.
supported him. Oh, yeah. They
Yeah.
loved him.
It
Oh,
was
those
supposed to
tax
happen to
cuts?
them.
Well, I
Right.
don't care about it. Like, tax cuts. If you're not making any money, you're not paying any taxes anyway. So they're all going into the red. What they thought was going to be great has turned on all of them. Like you can go through one industry at a time. Like there's almost no winners in all this.
Right. And when's Jamie Dimon going to come out and take a stance? I mean, when are some of these well-known CEOs and business leaders going to come out and say, or why don't you just troop down to DC and say, look, dude, you don't know what you're doing. Leave the Fed alone. Leave the chair alone. Let us dictate to you what needs to be
I don't
because
know. Like apparently the Walmart CEO and I think maybe the Target CEO are going to meet with Trump, but I don't know how that like because this is terrible for them, right? Because they either have to
right.
eat the costs or if they have to raise prices, which means they're going to have lower sales. So I don't know if they're even going to be able to get through to Trump. But thinking about business leaders reminds me of one thing I want to get in before we hop for today, which was my favorite question of the weekend. I was waiting to talk to you because we haven't spoken on Saturday, which is if I could buy a ticket, I would have bought a ticket to this meeting. What exactly could this Target CEO say to Al Sharpton in
Sharpen.
that meeting that they had on Sunday? Like, what did he say to Al Sharpton? Sorry, we're racist, but please don't hurt us anymore, or please
Right.
come shop with us again, or like, what could possibly be the statement out of the CEO of Target? I'm
Help.
curious.
I mean, all they can do is ask for help. What should I do? Help me. Help me help you, right? Jerry Maguire, right? Help you.
Restore DEI, like bring back those black entrepreneurs whose product they were selling.
You know,
What I mean, is even that enough to reverse all the negative shit? Or do you
I
have to
would
go
have
a
a
step further? Can this CEO even do it, or does he have to step aside and it has to be a new person?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the list would be so long, in my estimation, right? Because now that we've taken a good hard look at what Target is actually doing, and we want to know why do you have stores on white campuses but not on any HBCU campuses, right? How do you have so many African Americans employed in your company but yet none of them are ascending into leadership roles, right? Like how are you making so much money off of Black America yet not respecting their green dollars?
I
Like,
mean,
I mean, it's going to be tough for them to
I
bounce
wish
back.
that meeting. I wish that meeting was televised. That would have
It
been
needs
like
to be.
it would have been like such a primer on like American business and like okay,
Right.
I'm really pissed it was a closed door meeting, and I haven't heard anything coming out of it.
Right.
I can't imagine that they delivered an answer or
No.
a response or anything. But you're right. Maybe the question was, what do we need to do? And
Right.
hopefully Al Sharpton had a laundry list of, well, how much time do you have?
Right. Right. Just pull a list out. I got a list as long as my arm, fella.
Now that you ask,
Right.
or puts a book down on the table that's like 2,000 pages.
Yeah.
Here's a couple ideas.
It's going to be a tough uphill climb for Target to get back in the Black community's good graces. They're going to have to do a lot. But a lot of companies are because there are so many companies that just caved to Trump.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah.
Really.
Nothing. Right. Right. Right.
Commit fraud, but like they have to put numbers on the page and report them to the world tomorrow at like roughly 4 o'clock. So I'll be interested to see. And that conference call with Musk on it, with investors asking questions, will also be another one. That will probably be public.
Woo.
That one will probably be amazing because those shareholders
It's
are
going to leave a
pissed.
mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to leave a mark.
And I hope it does. So I can't wait
Yes.
for that one tomorrow as well. So I guess there's some good things moving in the right direction, but all the while, shitty stuff keeps happening in the world, and the U.S. the U.S. economy, the U.S. health, the
Stagnant.
U.S. wealth, the U.S. society is still another day in decline.
Yes, sir. All right. That's it for us today, buddy. Always great seeing you.
Mark, it's a pleasure. Talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you
Okay.
tomorrow. Stay
Bye.
loud and proud. All right. Peace.